What's up in War Eagle, everybody? You got Ike Jones here inside of Lobtown. We're just a few hours away from the tip-off inside of Neville Arena in Senior Day as Auburn hosts Georgia for the final game of the season. Let's get straight to it, man. Let's get to the town.
The Auburn Express.
You are now listening to the War Rapport Lawtown Podcast. With your boy Ike Jones.
Lobtown Podcast, Ike Jones in here talking a little Auburn versus Georgia. Please go ahead and share the content if you're out there watching right now. Let's get into the conversation. Auburn welcomes in Georgia the rematch, an opportunity for Auburn to get the season sweep against the Bulldogs. We've already talked about this matchup once before on the season, of course, but let's talk about what's changed since then. In that first game, of course, this was the first game Auburn, well, the only game actually this season that Auburn played without Jalen Williams, and you saw the new lineup. Georgia has not had an opportunity to try to stop Auburn at full strength this season, and I say full strength, keeping in mind the fact that Lior Berman is not going to be playing in this game, but as far as their starting lineup or their essential firepower that they've had this season, Jalen Williams was a big part of that. Not present for the Georgia game, no problem in that game. But let's take a look at the head-to-head in this game. According to the ESPN matchup predictor, Auburn is expected to win at a 94.9% chance. So Auburn needs to just handle business in this one, according to ESPN. Shouldn't be an issue. 23-7 on the season are the Auburn Tigers. 12-5 right now in conference. The Georgia Bulldogs coming into this one 16-14 with a conference record of 6-11. Auburn, has some work that they need to do in a couple of areas in this new revamped Georgia situation. But let's just take a look at what the numbers show. Points per game in favor of Auburn, 75 essentially for them. Points against Auburn is the more stingy defense, holding teams to 68 points per game, while Georgia's giving up 74. Free throw percentage, Auburn is shooting a robust 47% on the season, while Georgia is shooting 43%. Rebounds in favor of Auburn by about 3 boards, 38 to 35, almost 36 for Georgia. Assists per game slightly in favor of Auburn as well, 11.6 for Georgia, 17.7 assists per game for Auburn. Auburn leading in block shots, 6 block shots per game to Georgia's 3.2, and in steals per game, Auburn also the leader, 7.5 to 6.3 there for Georgia. So all of the statistical analysis, I guess you can say, it's not really analysis, it's just reading off stats, but the stats show that Auburn is the better basketball team and should be able to win this game inside of Neville Arena. But you, of course, cannot take any game for granted. So Auburn's going to go out here and have to win the game. Stat leaders for each of the respective teams changed a little bit for Georgia since the last time. Not sure what the status is going to be for one Jabri Abdur-Rahim, but he is no longer the leader of this team in points per game. Noah Thomason is. The left-hander has picked up his scoring for Georgia, now up to 12.8 points per game, shooting 41.6% from the field. So doing a good job for them, considering how many kind of a high usage guy, and he's shooting a lot of jump shots, doing a good job there. Russell Chiwa is now the rebounding leader for Georgia. He's pulling down 6.7 boards per game. We're going to talk about Russell in just a little bit here. Justin Hill is still the assist leader. Demery Jr. still the leader in steals. And then Anselm Ebay, the transfer over from Syracuse, of course, this season, transferred over from Syracuse, but he is now the leader in blocks per game for this team. So a few things have changed as far as like the lineups and the rotations for Georgia since that first game. So honestly, both teams are going to be playing differently than they were in the first game based upon just how each of the teams matched up before. And it's going to be interesting to see kind of the way that Georgia decides to play this game. Deloach had been moved out of the starting lineup for Georgia. He started versus Auburn in that first game, and he I don't think he even played any minutes in the last game for Georgia. So it's going to be quite a bit of a difference in how they're going to be looking as far as personnel. And again, of course, Auburn's going to be looking slightly differently. This episode is always brought to you by BetUS, where the game begins. Quick word from them, and we will take a look at the lines from today's game.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
BetUS, where the game begins. They are sponsoring today's episode, and they are where we're getting our spread from today. 15.5 in favor of Auburn in this one. The money line at minus 1,700. And then Auburn expected to score around 84 points. 83.5 is the line, while Georgia is looking at 68 points in this game. Over under for the total is 151 in this one. So if you want to place a bet, make sure that you hit the link in our description for any of the games today. BetUS.com is where you can go, where the game begins. A lot of betting still available for you all today to take a look at. That's not just basketball. That's across a lot of different things. So make sure you guys are checking them out as you go along. All right. Now, typically right here is where I would do home versus away. What I want to just skip straight to in this matchup is just talking about the last game, right? So in the last game, of course, Auburn won that game 97-76 at Georgia. Auburn shot 58.3% from three-point line, right, from the three-point line. And that is a huge difference from how Auburn typically shoots, period, but definitely an abstraction from how Auburn has typically shot on the road. Auburn was able to continue that. Tennessee shot well, plus 40%, over 40% in that game, and then that carried on into Missouri, where they shot the ball really well, plus 40% in that one. I think, well, actually, it's closer to 30-something% in the Missouri game. But at any rate, Auburn's been shooting the ball from three fairly well the last couple of contests. Question is, can they continue that streak here against Georgia? Georgia's not really a great three-point shooting defense, and they don't defend the three particularly well. But I think that having seen this team one time, Georgia's going to come out with a different kind of plan of attack for how they want to go against Auburn. Probably will still see quite a bit of zone. I actually don't think that's a very good idea from Georgia to try to go zone in this game. Just because Jalen Williams is going to be there, and Chaney Johnson and Chad Baker-Mazara have in their increased minutes have become more and more potent in the mid-range. Well, Chad Baker-Mazara has been great in the mid-range the entire time, but Chaney Johnson's getting his confidence in that mid-range. The zone is going to be susceptible there. If Georgia goes to a zone, I expect them to go to more of a 1-3-1 zone in this one than a 2-3 or a 3-2 to try to occupy that center at all times. But that's going to put them at a deficit in the short corner. So we'll see what happens as far as how they decide to match that up, but I do expect to see a little bit of zone from Georgia today to try to disrupt what Auburn wants to do, or really to dare them to take the perimeter shots, but they're probably going to go into some sort of extended zone, and I expect Georgia to get into some sort of pressing at some point in time during this game. However, Georgia's rotations aren't going to be very deep, so they're not going to be able to press for very long. I expect it to be in spurts. They'll want to come out and show pressure and try to speed Auburn up a little bit, which is why I think the guard play is going to be as good as it needs to be today in order to get this dub. You're going to have to see a good game again from Trey Donaldson, again from Aiden Holloway. If y'all remember in the first game versus Georgia, Aiden Holloway went crazy in that one. I expect them to play him a little bit differently in this one and really try to get more extended pressure with their defense a little bit higher. Even if they don't go full court press, I expect, some maybe ghost pressure and just picking up full court to try to make sure that Auburn's not comfortable getting into their offense. And so I do expect a little bit different from Georgia in this game. In the last matchup that Georgia had versus Ole Miss, Ole Miss was a little shorthanded. Georgia was a little shorthanded. They were able to come away with the victory. And the big thing for, Georgia in the games that they have been able to do well, I think they've been able to get to the free throw line. In this last game, let's take a look at the statistics for that one really quickly. In the last game versus Georgia, Auburn committed 24 personal fouls, and Georgia went to the free throw line and shot 31 free throws. That's something that Auburn's got to clean up. Not something to mention, Auburn didn't do a particularly good job in shooting their own free throws when they did get the opportunities. I expect offensively for Georgia in this one, they're going to attempt to run this offense through Russell Chiwa. That's why I said I was going to come back and talk about him a little bit more. Previously, it really had been a guard game for Georgia, and they were doing a lot of ISO ball for the guards. Now I think that they have gotten into a space where they want to get downhill and try to play through the post a little bit more. They do a pretty good job of having the duck in where they will get the guard going downhill, and then he'll make a short pass to Russell Chiwa there in the post. And Chiwa actually did a really good job because of the early foul trouble that Janai Broome was in, doing a really good job of being a big man in the paint. Points in the paint last time, Georgia was able to get 36. Now, Auburn had 38, but 36 points in the paint for not Russell Chiwa, but for Georgia in that first matchup. And I expect them to try to do a heavy dosage of that again. They're really going to try to get the bigs into foul trouble in this one so that they can have their way in the paint. This is going to have to be a game where Auburn needs to play smart with their post fouls that are available to make sure that Georgia doesn't really turn this into a free throw shooting contest. Georgia is the third best team in the conference at drawing free throws or getting to the free throw line. So this is a game where I expect them to try to take advantage of that and really draw fouls, especially against the bigs, to try to get it into a situation where they can continue to go to the post to get a lot of easier buckets rather than trying to fire away against the defense. The other thing that I think was particularly frustrating if you're an Auburn fan watching was the fact that in that game, Auburn really wasn't able to get a lot of points. I mean, again, I'm saying this as if Auburn didn't win this game handily, but early in the game when it was a closer thing, Auburn wasn't really getting into the run game and they weren't turning Georgia over. Georgia did a good job of not being sloppy with the basketball. Auburn's going to want to figure out how to get Georgia sped up a little bit and get out in transition a little bit more in this game. I expect this to be I expect Georgia to attempt to be very physical in this game. I don't know that they have the physicality to really bang, but what I do know is that Russell Chiwa and Anselm, those are guys that are going to come in and they're going to try to take this matchup very seriously and attempt to dominate in the post area versus Auburn, particularly on the offensive end. The defensive end, I don't know that they can offer a ton of resistance just because I don't know that Chiwa's really quick enough to be able to do that, which is, again, why I think you'll see a little bit of zone to try to slow down what Auburn's going to be able to do in the paint. And they're going to want to, like I said, extend that zone to try to make the guards uncomfortable. I definitely expect that to be the thing that happens in this game. But looking forward to seeing how this one plays out. Again, I think that Auburn should win this basketball game. It's not something that I expect for Georgia to come out and really give a whole lot of resistance in this game. I think they're going to play extremely hard. Oddly enough, Georgia plays a little bit better on the road than they do at home, right? They're a team that has done better. They've shot better on the road. I don't know what it is about that. So I do expect this game to be a little bit different in terms of, just kind of what you see from Georgia as far as their ability to score. They just shoot the ball better when they're on the road for whatever reason. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Auburn deals with a Georgia team that's going to want to come out early and kind of take the crowd out of it and see how they can bounce back from that. But again, this is a game I expect Auburn to win. I expect a lot of mid-range shots to be put up from Auburn in this one. Want to see that mid-range from Aiden Holloway again in this game so that he can show that three-level scoring ability and make Georgia play him a little more honestly. But this is a game where Noah Thomason is going to try to, put the Bulldogs on his back. And then I think Russell Chiwa is going to be a big part of how they're going to attack Auburn offensively. But listen, that's enough of me talking. I want to hear what you all think about this game. Score predictions, kind of what you expect to see from all facets of this game. Definitely let me know right down in the comments section. We'll definitely be talking about this game post-game right here on the channel. So come right back here as soon as the game is over with and we'll get reactions to the game. But like the video before you get out of here. Subscribe to the channel and make sure you share this content. Again, we'll be back at you with the post game, but until then, War Eagle.